Welcome to the Jameson Files. I'm Carrie Weber, your host. And on this episode, we're joined by Dr. Cappy Sinclair of Virginia Beach, Virginia. We're going to talk about his incredible origin story that took him on a journey from art restoration to smile restoration. So thank you so much for joining us.
No, I'm really excited to be here and to be part of this initial launch of Jameson to doing a podcast is really exciting for me.
Thanks, I'm excited too. I can't imagine anybody else to be launching it with, so this is a great start. So for those of you that don't know Dr. Sinclair, he does practice in Virginia Beach and has some amazing practices there that he's really launched from a place in just the past few years. He's just seeing such great success, and you just keep growing and growing. But why don't you just share a little bit of your story, just kind of how you started and where you are now and what you're working toward.
Yeah, absolutely. My journey into dentistry is a little unusual. It's not the typical, my dad was a dentist, or I knew a dentist growing up and I had a great experience and wanted to be a dentist. Dentistry for me was never even on my radar while I was in college. I went to school and I actually graduated as an Art Conservator. So I had an art history degree, a biology degree. During college, I restored paintings and sculptures for the museum on campus, as well as other museums around the Atlanta area. And while I enjoyed it, I wasn't totally passionate about it. It wasn't something that, if I was to keep going, I would have had to look for additional education and get my doctorate, and I didn't have that passion. Mm-hmm. And so I took a year off after college. I lived in California. I goofed off, had a lot of fun. And during that time, it took a lot of self-development to me to figure out, all right, what am I going to do next? Yeah. And we have a family friend who is a dentist who also restores antiques. And while it's not art, there's a lot of similarities between that. And he asked me one day if I'd like to come shadow him. And so I went and I shadowed and I saw what he was doing, how he ran his practice and his business. And I was like, I really like this dentistry style of business and practice. Yeah. And you're still working with your hands, but it has a patient or personal relationship that I didn't get in the conservation or art world. Yeah. I was very much a technician in a cubicle working on one piece at a time. He was a pediatric dentist, though, and I knew that I did not want to be a pediatric dentist. So that was a side of dentistry that I ruled out pretty quickly. Yeah. And so I had to go back to school, take some prerequisites, volunteered at a clinic during that year period, and applied to dental school and got in. And then it was just a matter of figuring out kind of what type of dentistry I wanted to do while I was in dental school. And I had very strategic and knew that I wanted to do the cosmetic side of things, and that's really what I focused most of my education on.
Well, what helped you get that clarity? I mean, it sounds like you really, as soon as you you kind of flipped that switch of, you wanted to go into, how did you have that clarity going through school and knowing what you're wanting to pursue for the future? What got you to that point? Was it just a true curiosity for the craft, or I know you personally, so I know you have an extraordinary level of business acumen. Yeah. I mean, did you have that back then?
I did not. So a lot of that has been things that I've seen best practices of other individuals, or a lot of the business things that I've learned are things outside of dentistry. So seeing what makes a company successful within their leadership structure, or in a consumer market, kind of how is the patient experience relatable to another person that has a great experience with business X, Y, and Z? And are there things that we can take and put towards dentistry? So a lot of our new patient experience and the questions that we asked are actually related around sales training, which I think is something that was uncomfortable for me at first, is being like, am I a salesperson? But when you look at it, you're truly selling health, wellness, confidence, not necessarily a commodity, but you are selling. Yeah,
and even if you're in any kind of career, even if you think of it just from a clinical perspective, you have to sell them on the benefits and the risks.
Absolutely. When
you're communicating and diagnosing, you do that in anything. You know, even great motivational speakers are selling you on their ideas. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that, because do you feel that your work and all that you've done in terms of honing in on that communication skill level with the patients, do you feel like that's been a turnkey for you? And how's that made a difference for you in the kind of dentistry you get to practice now? Because you do some pretty extraordinary, comprehensive cases, where a lot of people are saying, how does he even do that? How's he doing the kind of dentistry that he's doing? What is communication with the patients? Where does that play a role?
So, as a dentist and at most other technical professions, you know how to do the procedure, but you don't know how to talk to people about the procedure. And so when you're learning how to do something, most of the time you're going to communicate with someone in that same language. So you're going to talk dental talk to patients and things like that. So a lot of times it's you not talking as much and asking the patients what they actually are looking for. So asking our patients, what are your expectations from me as a doctor? What do you see yourself like? What are your challenges that you're currently facing? And let them give you the answers, and don't give them the answers for them before they even know what they're asking for. And that was something that I definitely had to learn over time. So that was not turnkey. That was I had to make a lot of mistakes and figure out, why are we presenting all this treatment and we're getting all these patients to say no? Where's the disconnect? And when I took a step back and approached dentistry from a different perspective of, all right, we're going to look at this like a business. We have a product of health that patients are looking for. How do we share with them what health is? So, and that, again, you're looking at dentistry in a different perspective than you would as a dental student, or what you think dentistry is a dental student or a newer dentist. So.
And do you think a lot of doctors out there feel like that's fluff? You know, I'm the doctor. I know this. It may be telling them what they have and that frustration, but knowing that you have to refine those listening skills, those communication skills, to ask the right questions and be able to be silent and listen and build that level of emotional intelligence as you're communicating with your patients. Do you feel like there's resistance out there, or do you think that we all see that as a need, but it's just very difficult to get over that hump?
I think probably in my experience, one of the biggest challenges that I had was wanting to be liked by all of my patients. So either a patient not accepting treatment, somehow me seeing that as a personal reflection on, like, I'm not doing a good job, or things like that. So getting over some of that kind of just mental blockage that's really challenging where your thoughts are is hard. And so that's where I think a lot of doctors get hung up, is they are like, well, I'm going to present treatment that I know this person will say yes to. And a really good book that I read is called Go for No. And it's basically talking about when you're pushing the envelope for a lot of patients, and do you want everyone to say yes to you, or would you rather have 30% of the patients tell you no, knowing that you've kind of potentially met their expectations and met them where you're going? Or do you want 100% case acceptance? Like, are you then really doing the best that you could do?
And are you really doing a service for that patient in the long end? And I think about that when we're teaching case presentation and communication skills. It's really big for us here, and talking about really going into those conversations from the idea of you're wanting to partner with that patient. I want them to be comfortable in having the conversations with me, and I want to give them the space to share. And if I can build in the plan what their goals are and help them meet their goals, that's a whole different conversation. It doesn't mean that you're sacrificing the diagnosis, but if you can present it to them in a way that helps them see, if one of your goals is to be healthy, here's what's happening. Here are the risks if you don't move forward with this kind of treatment, and being comfortable and confident in that conversation, but also giving that patient the time and the space to talk with you and get to those those little yeses along the way. And you do a lot. I mean, you ask a lot of pretty pointed questions when
we do.
when the patient first walks in the door, because you're great on a lot of things in terms of you've really embraced marketing for your practice. You really know what your purpose and what your mission is, and you really have that word out there to your community. So you've got people coming at this point knowing what they're walking into to a degree. Would you agree with that?
I definitely would, and I think part of that is just from the experience. Again, if you're a solo practicing dentist and you want to practice like every other dentist down the street, how are you differentiated?
Yeah.
So if a patient is going to have a different experience, a lot of that relies on their first interactions with the practice. So how are you answering the phone? How are you giving them a tour of your office? How are you doing your case presentations? What questions are you asking? What we've learned is you're not an expert by the knowledge that you have, but by the questions that you ask. So,
that's good.
If you ask patients questions they haven't heard before, they're going to listen as to why is he asking that question.
Yes.
Like, what would you change about your smile? Everyone asks that question.
Yeah.
But what's your family dental history? Like, how many other people ask that question? Or kind of what's your priority? Or who else helps you make financial decisions? And getting kind of all parties to the table that are involved in case presentations or decision-making are really, really helpful.
You're not an expert by the knowledge that you have, but by the questions that you ask.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. And, but some more of the questions, when we first were getting to know each other, you were sharing some of your best practices at the time and really trying to determine a lot about the patient mindset, what they're walking into that relationship, so that that you go a little bit deeper into that. What are your expectations?
Yeah.
What are some of those questions that you ask around that helps you determine where am I a good fit for you?
Right.
What are you looking for here? Where am I going here in my treatment planning with you for the future?
Right. So as dentists in general, I think we have several different types of patients within our practice, and patients don't know that there are options necessarily. So a patient might come to you and just say, I'm looking to get healthier. Well, healthier for them might mean they want a wider smile, and they might require some elective dentistry, or they might require some tooth movement, or they may have bite issues that need to be resolved. So healthier for them might mean something different than someone that's like, healthy for me means that nothing hurts.
Right.
So those are two different perspectives. So a lot of times we give our patients choices and help guide them in that direction. So asking our patients, we have several different types of patients in our practice. Mm-hmm. We have emergency patients who come in just when things are uncomfortable, and I let patients know we don't have a lot of those in our practice. Yeah. That's not my market, so that's not what I'm looking for. We have other patients that come in that are just looking to maintain where they are and potentially not be in pain, but not really improve where the current situation is. Yeah. And then we have other patients that are looking to improve their current situation and to have a comprehensive glance as to what could be done or how they could improve those things. And a lot of the times the information that they've shared with not just myself but with the team before I've even met them, I can know kind of where they are. So I can say basically it sounds like that you are leaning more towards the comprehensive side of things. Would you say that that's what you're looking for? And then they're like, oh, absolutely. Or they're like, well, maybe, but what does that entail? And then I can go into kind of more details of what the steps are.
Yeah.
So, and then sometimes the maintenance patients move into the comprehensive patients on their own time frame, or we check in with them. So the great thing about that is in a dental practice, you always have patients that are always seeking treatment, and it's not like you're completing treatment for all of your patients immediately.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and what I love about that is, number one, you're involving them, but it's also allowing you to know where they are mentally and emotionally in this conversation. And if you fire hose them with stuff that they're not emotionally prepared for, that doesn't really help anyone. You know where you stand from the beginning as you start to evaluate the health of their mouth and their teeth, and determine what can be done, what's needed, what can be accomplished, and even what's that higher attained service or care that could be on the horizon for them.
Right. If someone's open to learning about what's possible, that's great. But if they're not, I'm not going to go into, well, you need. Like,
Yeah.
they don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
Like, do they want to do that? Is that something that they would value?
Yeah.
Are you going to value an implant if we place it? Do you know what the protocols are to take care of it afterwards? Or is this going to be something that, like, I'm going to be married to because you followed what my intentions were and directives were for an implant, and then you're like, well, I had that implant and I failed. Now I have a bad experience in my mouth, and this is just a bad road to go down. So, it's nice to have a patient that has a choice and is an active participant in their health care.
Yes. And it helps, we always talk about you've got to build that trust. You've got to build that value, that if they have, disease in their mouth, you have to be able to build up that sense of urgency and need for that type of care. And that's, that's relationship building.
Yeah.
That's trust building. And that all comes from your ability to communicate clearly and ask the right questions and get them involved, partnering in their health and well-being.
Absolutely.
So, if you were to talk, for the people that are watching or listening, what would be one thing that you would, recommend that they would start with, to get on, if they're like, I don't know how to do any of that, like what would be one next step?
That's a hard question to answer, but I think as far as next step, even as a doctor or as a team, asking your patients what their expectations are of you as an office, of a doctor, and I think you'll get a lot more information out of that can potentially unfold into other areas of what the patients are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, if you're not used to asking those kinds of questions at all, I mean, that's a great one. We always say, what are your goals for your mouth, your teeth, and your smile, and what are your expectations of us as your care providers? Yeah. And I think that's a great start. And as you start to ask those questions and you see what you get back, it'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome relationship building with your patients. So I love it.
Yes.
So we're going to do some more episodes with Dr. Sinclair coming up soon. But this one's so great. Communication really is key to building that trust and value with the patients and helping them get on a path to health and stay healthy and be loyal, long-term members of your patient family. So
that's the goal.
That's the goal. Okay. Thanks, Dr.
Thank
Sinclair.
you.